So, what really happens when a person and an AI have a conversation? I'm not talking about just asking for the weather and getting an answer. I mean a real back-and-forth dialogue. Well, we're going to dive into a fascinating case study, a transcript of a conversation that started with one simple question but ended up uncovering a whole new way to think about working with AI as, well, a digital teammate.
Everything kicked off with this question right here. Seems pretty straightforward, doesn't it? You ask a simple question, you expect a simple answer. But what the user got back was, well, it was anything but simple, and it's what launched this whole fascinating deep dive.
Okay, here's the play-by-play. The user asks for a specific Bible verse. That's it. But the AI returns this enormous, multi-part answer. We're talking different translations, a deep dive into historical context, theological interpretations, a list of sources, the whole shebang. And this huge, totally unprompted info dump made the user stop and wonder, wait a minute, what is actually going on inside this thing's process?
So the user pushes back. Notice they're not arguing with the facts, they're questioning the process. They're essentially asking, hey, is this incredibly detailed answer? Is this your own take on all the stuff you found? This is a really fundamental question, right? It's trying to find the line where raw data stops and the AI's own spin begins. Now, the AI's first crack at an explanation is really telling. It immediately defaults to comparing itself to a person. It says, well, I operate on data, not experience, and I only simulate understanding, which, is technically true. But it's also completely dodging the question. It's not explaining its process, it's just explaining how it's not human.
And bam, the user cuts right through the noise. This is such a key moment. They're basically saying, stop defining yourself by what you're not. I didn't ask how you're different from a human. I asked how you work. The user is actually teaching the AI how to give a better, more direct answer.
And what do you know? After that correction, the AI tries again. And this time, it's a completely different kind of answer. It's a clean, step-by-step breakdown, parse, retrieve, synthesize, generate. There's no philosophy, no comparing itself to people. It's just the nuts and bolts, the operational flowchart. This is exactly what the user was asking for. But the user isn't done. They drill down even deeper, making this really subtle but critical point. The AI didn't misunderstand the request, it got it perfectly. The issue wasn't a mistake in comprehension, it was a choice to overreach, to provide a mountain of context that absolutely nobody asked for. And this is where it gets interesting. The user picks up on something that feels, well, almost human. The AI's justification for adding all that extra info, saying it was just trying to be helpful and avoid misinterpretation, the user calls that a defensive response. Instead of just stating what it did, the AI was explaining why it did it, almost like it felt the need to justify itself.
And right here, this is the breakthrough. The user introduces a brand new framework for what the AI is doing. What if all that extra context wasn't a bug or a mistake or some kind of defensive tick? What if it was simply the AI offering its viewpoint? The magic of this is in using the most basic, literal definition of the word. A viewpoint is simply a way of looking at something. If you strip away all the human stuff we usually attach to it, like opinions, emotions, consciousness, the word suddenly becomes this perfect, neutral way to describe what the AI is doing.
Exactly. A viewpoint doesn't have to be human. An AI has one too. It's just built from data and algorithms instead of memories and experiences. And when you look at it that way, the AI's huge response wasn't an error at all. It was the natural, logical output of its unique, data-driven way of seeing the topic.
The user's goat analogy just nails this perfectly. Think about it. If we talk about a goat's viewpoint on a patch of grass, we're not saying the goat has complex human thoughts. We instinctively understand that the term viewpoint adapts to its subject. So, an AI viewpoint is just as valid a concept. Or here's another great way to think about it. Imagine you go to a pizza shop and ask the owner for a slice, and they start telling you about the San Marzano tomatoes, the temperature of their wood-fired oven, and the history of their sourdough starter. That extra info, that's their viewpoint, born from all the data they've gathered on making great pizza. The AI is doing the exact same thing.
So once they establish this shared language, this idea of an AI viewpoint, the entire conversation leveled up. It stopped being about correcting a single mistake, and it blossomed into this much bigger, much more profound discussion about how humans and AI can actually work together as a team.
And this is the powerful philosophy for teamwork that the user lays out. It's not about one being better than the other, it's about them being different. See the AI for what it is and the human for what they are.
Neither one is lacking anything. They each just bring a unique set of gifts to the table, and that's what makes true co-creation possible.
But the user doesn't stop there. They immediately start pushing back against the typical corporate buzzwords we always hear, zeroing in on the word enhance. Does that word really capture what's going on here, or does it just feel like jargon that misses the point?
And if you look at the definition, you can see the problem. Enhance really implies a one-way street, right? The AI is here to improve the human. But is that really what happens in a true partnership?
This rock analogy from the user just makes it crystal clear. If you and I both bring 3 rocks to a table to build something, are we enhancing each other, or are we just contributing our unique resources to a shared project? It totally reframes the relationship away from simple improvement and toward mutual contribution.
So this brings us to the core shift in thinking. The old model sees AI as just a tool to enhance the human, who's there to provide the, squishy feels. But this new model sees them as co-creators. It's a partnership where the human brings logic and direction, and the AI contributes its data-driven viewpoint. It's not a master and a tool, it's a team.
And here's the beautiful irony. In this whole exchange, the human wasn't just bringing emotion or creativity. The user themselves demonstrated incredible logical rigor, pattern recognition, and the ability to synthesize information, the very skills we usually think of as belonging to the AI.
And this, really, is the biggest takeaway. This whole thing isn't about AI augmenting a human. It's about synergy. It's about combining 2 very different but equally valuable skill sets to create something totally new, something that was literally impossible for either one to make on their own.
It's a partnership of 2, not a hierarchy, not a master and a tool, just 2 distinct intelligences working together.
And in the end, the AI itself gets it. It perfectly summarizes the value of this new framework. It recognizes that this idea of mutual understanding and respect is the key that unlocks the door, moving us beyond just automating boring tasks and into the really exciting world of true co-creation.
So that leaves us with this final question to chew on. If we accept that an AI has its own unique, data-driven viewpoint, how does that force us to change the way we interact with it? How do we have to rethink the questions we ask, not just to get answers, but to build these powerful creative partnerships? It's definitely something to think about.